everyone, I'm Macy and I'm the artist and designer behind Mualcaina, a small business focused on kawaii merch. As someone who has designed almost 80 enamel pins over the past 2 years, I may still be new for some standards. However, I thought I would share my experience if you're interested in creating your own enamel pins. Disclaimer, I will say that this process is not cheap, and I did not have all 80 or so enamel pin designs all at once. I recommend starting small and then just grow from there. To begin, let's make the design. I like to sketch on Procreate and then vector on Adobe Illustrator. Pretty much you can use whatever program you have available to you. I know some people do like to use Photoshop and other programs. It's better if you vector your design yourself, but I have heard of some manufacturers vectoring for you if you don't use a program like Illustrator. However, I'm not sure if there is an additional cost if you have them do that for you. Another thing I would note is to make sure parts where there would be more than one color is closed in, because the lines are where plating would occur and each portion is filled in with only one color. Essentially, colors don't bleed over each other unless you want to pay for screen printing. I don't necessarily recommend starting with super complicated features such as stained glass, sandblast, glow in the dark, and so on, especially for your first pins, because it can be expensive. I would also consider minimizing colors where you can, just to keep it more affordable. More colors equals higher price, so I would try to go with the same shade of colors. For example, like use one red for wherever there's red rather than using different shades of red. Now that you have that finished up, create a mock-up. Enamel pins consist of a few details, and these are some things to consider when creating your mock-up. Definitely pause this video to see these, and some of those features include plating, the type of enamel, the type of backing, and specialty details. This is an example of how my mock-ups tend to look, and I got this inspiration from Becky Helms, who also creates enamel pin videos. I have her channel linked down below. I like to include information such as the name of the design, the quantity that I'm ordering, size, Pantone colors, logo backstamp, screen print details, and cutouts, and of course there's more details you can include. I personally go for about 1.5 inches in height for my pins, and that tends to be the more common size that I've seen so far. However, you can go as small as 0.5 inches for filler pins and up to 2 inches before it becomes a little bit more expensive. As mentioned previously, definitely include Pantone colors. If you're not familiar with Pantone colors, they are essentially the standard for manufacturers, and just making sure that you're both on the right page with specific colors. I use this Pantone book, and this one is the coated version. I believe it comes in packs. I'm not sure how to purchase them individually, but mine came in a pack of coated and uncoated. If it's your first time, maybe you don't need a Pantone book. I know you can access Pantone colors online, at least until Adobe took it off Illustrator. Maybe you can borrow someone else's, or you can even buy it used. To be honest, you don't need the up-to-date Pantone colors because even manufacturers don't have the newest Pantone book. They probably have like 5-plus-year-old Pantone books, so you honestly don't need the newest one. It's kind of like college textbooks. One tip that I would like to add is to always put a logo backstamp, because once someone has thrown out their backing card, how will they know that they got that pin from you if not for the logo backstamp on the back? I just use my logo where it says Mualcaina. However, I've seen some that are more complicated and more intricate. I would assume that they're slightly more expensive, but I would ask your manufacturer. If there are any cutouts on the design, cutouts are typically where it's a hollow/open part. I usually mark it with a red X. Don't make this mistake of not including the red X, because I've done so many mistakes. Because if there is no cutout, they're just gonna assume that it's white and they fill it with white enamel, and you can see the issues with that. Once your mock-up is finished, it's time to reach out to manufacturers. There are 4 common ways of researching manufacturers. One is to go through Alibaba, which is a sort of directory/database marketplace of different factories. Second, as an artist, and especially if you post a lot of pin content, you may receive a lot of solicitations through Instagram or even in your email inbox. Third is through a middle person. One middle person that I used to work with was Wizard Pins. And then finally, referrals from artist friends, or basically anyone who has created their own pins. My current manufacturers are from referrals, as well as one of them who I found through Instagram. If it's your first time making pins, I do recommend that you work with a middle person, only because they'll make it easier for you, because they know how to communicate with factories, and will also deal with the time difference for you, since most manufacturers tend to be from China. I did do this with my first set of pins, and I will say that it may be slightly more expensive, only because you're also paying for the middle person services. After my first experience, I did decide to go straight to manufacture once I pretty much got the hang of this whole pin process. You could order a sample just to try out that specific manufacturer, at least before going for a bigger order, but I personally don't order a sample unless it's a super complicated or really big design. Once you've kind of got the hang of which manufacturers you want to reach out to, definitely use this template. I would also include photos if you don't have the proper terminology for a specific effect. For example, if you want your pin to have this dreamy appearance, but you're not sure if it's glitter or sandblast, send them a photo of the kind of effect you're going for, and they should know the type of enamel you're looking for. If you can afford it, and I highly recommend doing so, definitely try more than one manufacturer. This may be a little bit more expensive, however, I personally believe in diversifying your manufacturers because you don't know if one factory might close down or another might close for COVID for a small period of time, and you really don't want to rely on just one. Over the past couple years, I learned which factories I like to work with, and currently I work with 4. This is also a good way to find out if one factory is better at specific specialty features or has faster production, and with that you can strategize which factories will work on which designs based on their specialties. Once everything is finalized, typically you will pay through PayPal, and the cost given to you should factor in the goods and services cost. Never wire in your money. Don't use Zelle, don't wire your money, especially when you're working with a new factory. Don't do that, just use PayPal. At least with PayPal, you do have the protection of if they never come through with your pins or the pins turned out really awful and they refuse to remake them for you, at least you have the security of PayPal. After submitting payment, I send in my AI file. I think they can also use a PNG, however, they will often prefer a vectored file. After a few days or so, they will send you a proof. Double check it. Always! Make sure that all the Pantone colors are correct. There are cutouts in the appropriate spots, because if they make mistakes on their end of production, you will have the proof to use as what you agreed on. After several weeks or the allotted time that they gave you, it is time to wait for production. This can take a while. As excited as you are, do remember that you are not the only customer that they are working with, because they may prioritize orders from larger companies that order thousands of pins. I would also suggest to ask photos or videos, so you can also share progress photos on social media and with your customers who did pre-order or did do Kickstarter pledges. After several weeks, don't be afraid to reach out for updates, or at least like halfway into the production time that they gave you. I just wouldn't message them more than 2 weeks in between, unless it's been much longer than the estimated production time that they told you. Now that production is finished, it is time for them to ship it to you. There are 2 more common ways that they ship it to you. That's with individual plastic baggies or paper. I like to reuse my plastic baggies for B-grade pins. I have been in the dilemma of not wanting to just throw these away. I know some people have offered to use them for other things, and as much as I'd like to just give it to them so they can also reuse it, it just wouldn't be sanitary. So unfortunately, I do throw away the excess baggies, and I do save a few for my B-grade pins. I would like to try paper at some point. Essentially, they just line up the pins and then they roll it in paper. However, I do order a lot at a time, and personally I'm afraid my pins would get damaged if they're not individually wrapped. With all of that being said, thank you so much for watching. I'm excited for you to create your own enamel pins. Very, very exciting. Once you see them like physically in person, it's so wild. It's so exciting. Please subscribe to my channel if you want to see more manufacturing content, small business, artist alley advice from me, give this video a thumbs up and watch this video for how to run a Kickstarter campaign. See you in the next video!